Forward Operating Base Atlas sat in the heart of Helmand Province like a scar on the face of Afghanistan. The Hindu Kush Mountains painted black silhouettes against the bleeding orange sky. August 14th, 2011. The air already carried the promise of another 100-degree day, the kind of heat that made men's thoughts slow and their tempers quick. Master Sergeant Grayson Thorne had seen 30 years of sunrises in places most Americans couldn't find on a map. At 55, his face was a road map of those years. Lines carved deep around eyes that had witnessed too much. Gray streaked through hair that had once been dark brown. 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, and a reputation among Navy SEALs as the man who could turn farm boys into precision instruments of war. He moved through the pre-dawn darkness with the economy of movement that came from decades of muscle memory. His morning ritual never changed. Walk the perimeter, check the wire, visit the armory, feel the pulse of the base before the chaos of another combat day began. The armory building was supposed to be empty at 0445 hours. Supposed to be. But Grayson heard it before he saw it. The distinctive metallic click of a Barrett M82 50 caliber rifle being field stripped. He'd heard that sound 10,000 times in his career. He knew every component, every spring, every pin. He rounded the corner, expecting to see one of his SEAL snipers putting in extra maintenance time. What he saw instead made him stop mid-stride. A woman sat at the maintenance bench. Correction, a girl. Couldn't have been more than 5'3", maybe 125 pounds, soaking wet. Dark auburn hair pulled back in a regulation bun so tight it looked painful. Desert camouflage uniform with the sleeves rolled precisely to mid-forearm, revealing tanned, corded muscle. But it was her hands that captured Grayson's attention. They moved across the disassembled Barrett with the confidence of a concert pianist playing a familiar piece. No hesitation, no wasted motion. Each component came apart in a sequence so practiced it looked choreographed. The upper receiver, the bolt carrier group, the gas piston, the trigger assembly, laid out on an oil-stained towel in perfect geometric arrangement. Grayson had trained Marine Scout snipers, Army Rangers, Delta Force operators. Hell, he'd personally certified 43 SEAL snipers over his career. He recognized mastery when he saw it. This wasn't basic Army weapons maintenance. This was the movement pattern of someone who'd done this under stress, under fire, in the dark, while people were dying around them. The kind of muscle memory that only came from hundreds of repetitions in conditions where failure meant death. The woman sensed his presence. Her hands didn't falter on the rifle's components, but her head turned. Green eyes met his, clear, calm, the kind of steady gaze that came from hours spent behind a rifle scope, controlling your breathing while the world exploded around you. She didn't seem startled, didn't straighten to attention, just gave a single, economical nod of acknowledgement and returned to her work. Grayson stepped closer. The name tape on her uniform read, Blackwood, Captain rank. He mentally scrolled through the base roster. Blackwood, Ilara, age 27, designated marksman attached to 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. On paper, she was supposed to be providing long-range fire support for infantry patrols. Nothing special, nothing that would explain those hands. Mind if I watch? Grayson kept his voice neutral, command without arrogance. Free country, Master Sergeant. Texas accent, slight, almost hidden under careful enunciation. Grayson pulled up a stool. The Barrett was spread before her like a medical examination. 30 pounds of American engineering capable of punching through engine blocks at 1.5 miles. In the right hands, it could change the outcome of a battle. In the wrong hands, it was just an expensive paperweight. She began reassembling. The bolt carrier group slid into place with a whisper of metal on metal. Perfect tolerances. Zero friction. She'd cleaned this weapon so many times she could calculate the exact amount of oil needed by touch alone. How long you been working with the Barrett? Grayson asked. 4 years. Her fingers installed the gas piston without looking. Started on the M24 system in basic sniper school. Moved up to the M2010. Got certified on this beauty about 6 months before deployment. 4 years. That tracked with her age. Probably joined at 23. Volunteered for sniper training. Graduated. Deployed. But something didn't add up. Grayson had read hundreds of sniper school graduation reports. The language was always the same: qualified, proficient, demonstrates aptitude, the kind of bureaucratic nonsense that told you nothing about whether the shooter could actually perform when bullets started flying. But this was different. See much action with it? He pressed, gentle, like coaxing a spooked horse. Ilara's hands stilled on the rifle's receiver, just for a heartbeat, then continued their mechanical dance. Quiet, almost too quiet, enough to know what it can do when it needs to. There it was, that tone. Grayson had heard it before from his best operators, the ones who'd actually seen the elephant, actually pulled triggers on living, breathing human beings at distances most people couldn't comprehend. They never bragged, never boasted, just that quiet acknowledgement that they'd crossed a line most humans never approached. The talkers were always the ones with the least to talk about. Ilara continued working, installing the muzzle brake, checking the scope mounts with fingertip pressure, feeling for the microscopic movement that would mean a loose mounting screw. At these ranges, a loose scope could mean the difference between a successful mission and catastrophic failure. She knew that. He could see it in the way she double-checked every connection point. The maintenance bay door swung open. Heavy boots on concrete. Corporal Bryce Ashford strutted in like he owned the place. 22 years old. Fresh-faced kid from Tulsa with exactly 7 months in country. He'd seen some action, enough to develop the swagger that young soldiers wore like armor against their own fear. "Morning, Captain Blackwood." Bryce's grin didn't quite reach his eyes. "Still playing with that big gun of yours?" Ilara didn't respond immediately. Her focus remained on installing the Barrett's barrel assembly. Grayson watched her jaw tighten. Microscopic. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but he'd spent 3 decades reading human tells. That tiny muscle flex said everything. "Got to keep it clean," Ilara said, voice flat, neutral, professional. "Never know when you might need to reach out and touch someone." Bryce laughed, sharp, edged with something that wasn't quite humor. "Yeah, well, maybe next time leave the long-range work to the boys, ma'am. We've got actual experience with this stuff." The maintenance bay went silent. Not the comfortable silence of people working, the heavy silence before violence. Grayson felt his own muscles tense. He'd seen this scenario play out 100 times. Casual dismissal wrapped in buddy-buddy language. The kind of thing that destroyed unit cohesion. The kind of thing that got people killed. He was about to intervene when Ilara looked up from her work. "Experience." She repeated the word slowly, like she was tasting it, testing its weight. "That's an interesting perspective, Corporal." Something in her tone made Bryce take a half step backward. His smile faltered. Uncertain ground now. Ilara returned to her rifle, but Grayson caught the slight smile that played at the corner of her mouth. The expression of someone who knew something others didn't. The expression of someone who'd proven themselves 1,000 times and didn't need to prove it again. Bryce shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "Yeah, well, just saying. Don't want you getting in over your head, ma'am." Noted. Ilara's hands never stopped moving. Click, click, click. The Barrett coming together like a puzzle only she could solve. Bryce looked at Grayson, looking for backup, looking for male solidarity. Grayson's face remained stone. "Corporal Ashford," Grayson's voice carried the weight of 3 decades of command. "How many confirmed kills do you have?" Bryce straightened, pride in his voice. 7, Master Sergeant. 3 firefights in Sangin District, all verified by my platoon leader." "Good kills," Grayson said. "Combat's combat." He turned to Ilara. "Captain Blackwood, how many confirmed kills?" Ilara's hands stilled. She looked up, met Grayson's eyes. Something flickered there. Reluctance. Pain. The weight of memory. I don't discuss numbers, Master Sergeant. Quiet. Firm. Bryce's grin returned. See? Probably hasn't. She's got more confirmed kills than your entire platoon combined. Grayson cut him off, voice like a blade. Now get out of my maintenance bay. Bryce's face went red, mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came. He looked at Ilara. She'd returned to her work. Ignoring him completely, the ultimate dismissal. Bryce left, door slamming behind him. Grayson waited until the sound of boots faded. Why didn't you shut him down yourself? Ilara installed the final component. The Barrett was whole again, 30 pounds of precision death. She ran her hand along the barrel, checking for imperfections by touch alone. Proving myself to people like him wastes energy I need for the work. She lifted the rifle, sighted down the barrel at an imaginary target. Perfect cheek weld, perfect eye relief. The weapon fit her like it had been custom built. Besides, he'll figure it out eventually, or he won't. Either way, it doesn't change what I can do. Grayson felt something shift in his assessment of this woman. Smart, disciplined, confident without arrogance. The kind of operator you wanted at your back when everything went sideways. You do have a record though, don't you? Not a question, a statement. Ilara set the Barrett down, gentle, reverent. Sir, some things are classified for good reason. Before Grayson could respond, the base-wide speakers crackled to life. The watch officer's voice, urgent, clipped. All personnel, this is Atlas Tactical Operations Center. We have troops in contact, Eagle 6 convoy, Sangin Valley, coordinates to follow, multiple casualties, requesting immediate fire support, sniper teams to TOC immediately. This is not a drill. Ilara was already moving, strapping on her plate carrier, grabbing pre-staged ammunition, slinging the Barrett across her back with practiced ease. 68 pounds of equipment on a 125-pound frame. She moved like it weighed nothing. Grayson followed her to the Tactical Operations Center. The TOC was organized chaos. Radio operators coordinating air support, intelligence officers pulling up satellite imagery. Colonel William Hayes stood at the central display. 60 years old and straight as a ramrod. Korea veteran. 2 tours in Desert Storm. The kind of commander who'd earned respect through competence, not rank. The tactical display showed Captain Marcus Webb's convoy. 12 vehicles strung out along a narrow valley road. Red icons marked enemy positions. Too many red icons. Taking effective fire from ridge positions, the radio crackled. Static and the distinctive crack of incoming rounds. 3 Kilo India Alpha, 5 Whiskey India Alpha. Request immediate sniper support. Enemy positions approximately 900 to 1400 meters. Elevated terrain. We are pinned down. Hayes looked up as Grayson and Ilara entered. His eyes went to Ilara, skeptical. She was already studying the tactical display. Captain Blackwood, you're rated on the Barrett system? Hayes asked. Yes, sir. Ilara traced the enemy positions with her finger. Based on the terrain and their firing positions, they're using the rock formations for cover. Standard small arms won't reach them effectively. The angle gives them protection from direct fire weapons. Hayes's eyebrows rose. That wasn't the response of a typical designated marksman. That was tactical analysis, battlefield geometry, the kind of thing you learn from hard experience. We need a sniper team on that ridge in 20 minutes, Hayes said. The Apache birds are 15 minutes out, but Webb can't wait that long. I can be there in 15, sir. Ilara's voice. Calm, no hesitation. Captain Blackwood, those are extreme range shots in combat conditions, Hayes began. Grayson stepped forward. Sir, let Ghost work. The nickname hung in the air. Ghost. Ilara glanced at Grayson. Something unspoken passed between them. Hayes studied Ilara for a long moment, reading her, measuring her. 30 years of combat experience told him something that rank and gender couldn't. This woman was the real deal. Go. One word, command and trust combined. Ilara moved. Fast, efficient, no wasted energy. Grayson fell in beside her. Ghost? Ilara asked as they jogged toward the motor pool. Call it a hunch. Grayson grabbed his spotting scope and range-finding equipment. You move like a ghost. You shoot like a ghost. Might as well own it. They loaded into a Humvee, driver already waiting, engine running. The ride to the ridge position took 12 minutes. Brutal terrain. The vehicle bounced over rocks and dried creek beds. Ilara braced the Barrett carefully, protecting it like a child. The rifle was more than equipment. It was an extension of herself. The Humvee screeched to a halt. Ilara was out before the wheels stopped moving. She moved up the rocky slope like a mountain goat. 68 pounds of gear, 103-degree heat. She didn't slow down. Grayson followed. His 55-year-old lungs burned. Pride kept him moving. He'd trained too many young shooters to let one outpace him now. They reached the ridge crest. Ilara was already setting up. Bipod deployed. Rear bag positioned. Body alignment perfect. She pulled out a small meteorological device, checking wind speed, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure. Every variable that would affect a bullet's flight path. Grayson set up his spotting scope, 60 power magnification. He could see the convoy below, vehicles clustered in a natural choke point, bodies on the ground, Marines taking cover behind Humvees, muzzle flashes from the ridge opposite them. Range to nearest target, Grayson called out. He triggered his laser rangefinder. 927 meters. Ilara adjusted her scope. I have visual on a PKM gunner, partially concealed behind sandbag position, 6-inch gap at chest height. Her voice was different now, flat, professional, the voice of someone entering a different mental state. Wind 4 to 6 miles per hour, southwest. Steady. Ilara's breathing steadied into a controlled rhythm. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Her body became still as stone. Grayson watched through his spotting scope. The PKM gunner was hammering the convoy with sustained fire. 7.62 millimeter rounds chewing through metal and flesh. Every second he stayed alive, more Marines died. Target confirmed hostile, Grayson said. You're clear to engage. Ilara's finger rested on the trigger. Proper placement. First pad of the index finger. Not too much, not too little. Perfect pressure distribution. She whispered something. Grayson couldn't hear it, didn't need to. He'd heard enough prayers before shots, enough last words, enough quiet promises to the dead. The Barrett spoke. At 927 meters, the bullet took roughly 1.3 seconds to reach the target. Grayson watched through his spotting scope. The PKM gunner's head snapped back, the 6-inch gap in the sandbags. Perfect shot placement. The man dropped like someone had cut his strings. Target down, Grayson confirmed. Ilara was already cycling the bolt, ejecting the spent brass, chambering a fresh round. Her eyes never left the scope. Second target, 1,185 meters, spotter moving behind pickup truck. Confirmed, Grayson said. He's moving left to right, approximately 2 miles per hour. Ilara led the target, calculating bullet flight time, predicting where the target would be when the round arrived. Advanced ballistics performed in her head faster than most people could use a calculator. The rifle cracked again. Through the spotting scope, Grayson saw the truck's cab window explode. The spotter collapsed. The shot had traveled through the glass, through the cab, and found flesh on the other side. Jesus, Grayson breathed. That's a hell of a shot. Ilara didn't respond, already scanning for the next threat. Third target, 1,340 meters. Motorcycle, Taliban commander based on the radio antenna. Grayson found the target, a man on a motorcycle moving fast, maybe 35 miles per hour across rough terrain, weaving between rocks. This wasn't just a long shot. This was a nearly impossible shot. "Target's moving too fast," Grayson said. "Wait for him to stop." "No time," Ilara's voice, flat, certain. "He's calling in reinforcements. I can see the radio. He stops, we lose our chance." Grayson watched her. She was calculating. Distance, target speed, lead time, bullet drop, wind drift, solving a physics problem that would take a computer several seconds. She had maybe 3 seconds before the motorcycle disappeared behind a boulder. Ilara exhaled halfway, held it, the natural respiratory pause. She sent the round downrange. The motorcycle was 120 feet from where it had been when she pulled the trigger. The round caught the rider in the upper torso. The bike went down in a spectacular crash, tumbling, throwing up dust. The rider didn't get up. "Confirmed kill," Grayson said. His voice carried a note of awe he couldn't quite hide. "Captain, that was a moving target at over 1,300 meters. That's world-class shooting." Ilara's face remained expressionless, scanning, hunting. "Fourth target, 1,287 meters, behind boulder, can't get a direct shot." Grayson found the position. A Taliban fighter crouched behind a rock formation. Smart, using natural cover, no clean shot. The only exposed area was a few inches of shoulder, not enough to guarantee a kill. "No shot," Grayson said. "Wait for him to move." Ilara studied the rock face, the angle, the composition, her mind working through something Grayson couldn't see. "I have a shot," she said. Before Grayson could ask what she meant, the Barrett fired. Through his spotting scope, Grayson saw the round impact, not on the target, on the rock face, 6 inches to the left of the fighter's position. The .50 caliber round hit granite at supersonic speed. The rock exploded. Fragments, shrapnel, pieces of bullet jacket and stone moving at lethal velocity. The Taliban fighter screamed, visible even at this distance. He stumbled out from cover, clutching his face, his neck shredded by stone fragments. Ilara broke the shot again. Center mass. The fighter dropped. Grayson sat back, stunned. "You just calculated a ricochet shot at 1,200 meters under combat stress." The angle was right. Ilara ejected the brass. Granite's hard enough to fragment the bullet, but not absorb all the energy. Basic physics. Basic physics. Grayson had trained scout snipers for 20 years. He'd never seen anyone attempt a ricochet shot beyond 300 meters. The variables were too complex, the margin for error too small. This woman just did it at 4 times that range, and she called it basic physics. The radio crackled, Captain Webb's voice, strained but alive. "Atlas, Eagle 6, all threats neutralized. I don't know what kind of guardian angel you sent, but she just saved 14 lives. Request immediate medevac for wounded." Hayes's voice came over Ilara's radio. "Ghost, status." Ilara keyed the mic. 4 targets engaged. 4 targets eliminated. Area secure for medevac operations. "Outstanding work. Return to base for debrief." The ride back was silent. Ilara cleaned the Barrett in the moving Humvee. Methodical. Practiced. Grayson watched her hands. Steady. No tremor. No shake. She just killed 4 human beings at extreme range, and her hands were rock solid. That told him 2 things. First, she'd done this before. Many times. Second, she'd made peace with it. Whatever psychological process soldiers went through to reconcile taking human life, Ilara had completed that journey. The debriefing room felt sterile after the heat and chaos of the ridge. Colonel Hayes sat at the head of the table, intelligence officers on either side, Grayson and Ilara across from them. "Captain Blackwood," Hayes opened a personnel file, Ilara's file. "According to your records, you're qualified expert on the M24 sniper system. Completed Army Sniper School at Fort Benning with honors. Deployed to Afghanistan 7 months ago as a designated marksman." He looked up. Nothing in here about Barrett qualification. Nothing about the kind of tactical analysis you demonstrated in the TOC. and certainly nothing about ricochet shots at extreme range. Ilara sat at attention, eyes forward. Sir, my file reflects my official training history. Official? Hayes latched onto the word, meaning there's unofficial history. Silence. Ilara's face remained neutral. Grayson leaned forward. Sir, with respect, I've trained Navy SEAL snipers for 20 years. What Captain Blackwood demonstrated today wasn't Army sniper school technique. That was Tier 1 operations work. The kind of shooting you don't learn at Benning. Hayes studied Ilara, reading between the lines of her service record, looking for the gaps, the unexplained periods, the sanitized sections. Captain Blackwood, Hayes closed the file. Did you have a prior assignment that's not reflected in your standard personnel record? Ilara's jaw tightened. Minute movement. Sir, I had a temporary duty assignment. Task Force Nightfall. 18 months. Classified under Special Access Programs. The room went very quiet. Task Force Nightfall. Grayson knew the name, barely, whispered about in SEAL team rooms. A CIA hunter-killer unit. They didn't conduct raids. They didn't capture high-value targets. They eliminated specific threats with surgical precision. And they did it from distances that made conventional forces nervous. Nightfall, Hayes' voice carried new respect. Counter-sniper operations. Yes, sir. Ilara's voice steady, professional. Taliban and Al-Qaeda had been targeting U.S. officers with trained marksmen, disrupting command and control. Nightfall's mission was to identify and neutralize those snipers before they could operate. How many? Grayson asked. He needed to know, needed to understand exactly what kind of operator sat across from him. Ilara met his eyes. 47 confirmed kills, Master Sergeant, all at ranges exceeding 800 meters. 32 of them beyond 1,500 meters. 47. Grayson felt the number settle in his gut like a stone. Most career snipers would be proud of 20 confirmed kills over a full 20-year career. Ilara had 47 in 18 months. Hayes leaned back. What's your longest confirmed kill, Captain? Ilara was quiet for a moment, remembering, or maybe deciding whether to say it out loud. Make it real. 3,247 meters, sir. Her voice barely above a whisper. March 23, 2010. 3 observers with laser rangefinders verified the distance. 2 from my unit, 1 from CIA ground branch who was conducting surveillance on the target. The room fell silent. 3,247 meters, just over 2 miles. Grayson did the math in his head. That put her within 300 meters of the longest confirmed sniper kill in history. A Canadian Special Forces operator had made a 3,500-meter shot in Iraq. Nobody else had come close, until now. Who was the target? Hayes asked, gentle, like he already knew this was going to hurt. Ilara's hands clenched, first sign of emotion she'd shown. Taliban sniper, call sign, the surgeon, real name unknown. Her voice cracked slightly. He'd killed 23 Americans over 14 months, all long-range precision shots, all targeting officers in senior NCOs. He was degrading our command effectiveness across 3 provinces. She paused, breathing carefully, controlling something that wanted to break free. The surgeon killed my father, Master Gunnery Sergeant Everett Blackwood, February 7th, 2009. Shot him through an armored Humvee viewport at 2,960 meters. My father bled out before medevac arrived. Grayson felt the pieces click into place. Ilara Blackwood hadn't joined the Army for patriotic duty or career advancement. She joined for revenge. Spent 18 months hunting the man who killed her father. And when she found him, she'd reached out across 2 miles of empty air and delivered justice. I'm sorry for your loss, Hayes said quietly. Your father was a legendary Marine. Everett Blackwood trained half the scout snipers in the Corps during the 80s and 90s, including me. He was the best instructor I ever had. Ilara's eyes glistened. First tears Grayson had seen, she blinked them away. Professional. Controlled. If your father trained you, Hayes continued, then I understand why you're this good. But I need to know something. Why isn't any of this in your official record? Why was your time with Task Force Nightfall classified? Ilara looked down at her hands. Sir, after I eliminated the surgeon, I was discharged from Task Force Nightfall. The shot was successful. The distance was verified. The target was confirmed dead. She took a breath. But I disobeyed direct orders to take it. What were your orders? Grayson asked. Capture. CIA wanted the surgeon alive for interrogation. They believed he had intelligence on Russian training programs for insurgent forces. I was ordered to wound, not kill, to incapacitate so ground forces could capture him. Ilara's voice was steady, but Grayson heard the undercurrent, the pain, the guilt. I took the kill shot anyway, 3,247 meters, through his center mass. He died instantly. So they kicked you out, Hayes said. Psychological evaluation determined I was operationally compromised, revenge motivated, unable to follow orders when personal feelings were involved. They sanitized my record and reassigned me to conventional forces, as punishment and as protection. If enemy intelligence identified me as a Nightfall operator, I'd be a high-value target. This way, I'm just another designated marksman in a regular infantry unit. Grayson understood now. Ilara Blackwood was one of the most lethal snipers in American military history, and she'd been deliberately buried in the bureaucracy, hidden away, her capabilities classified, her record scrubbed, all because she chose justice over orders. Hayes stood, walked to the window overlooking the base. Captain Blackwood, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need an honest answer. Can you follow orders now? Can you put mission before personal feelings? Ilara stood. Attention. Sir, I've had 2 years to think about that shot. 2 years to live with the consequences. My father taught me that vengeance and justice aren't the same thing. Vengeance is personal. Justice is professional. I took that shot for vengeance. I've regretted it every day since. Not because the surgeon didn't deserve to die, but because I let my emotions compromise the mission. I won't make that mistake again. Hayes turned, studied her. Master Sergeant Thorne, your assessment? Grayson had spent 30 years evaluating warriors, reading their potential, predicting their performance under pressure. He'd made his reputation on being right about people. Sir, Captain Blackwood is the most naturally gifted sniper I've encountered in 3 decades of service. Her technical skills are beyond question. Her tactical awareness is exceptional, and I believe she's learned the hardest lesson any operator can learn. That the mission is bigger than personal feelings. I trust her at my back. Hayes nodded slowly. Captain Blackwood, my SEAL team will be conducting operations in this region for the next several weeks. Some of those operations will require sniper support at extreme ranges. Would you be interested in providing that support on a temporary assignment basis? Ilara looked surprised. Sir, I'm not sure my chain of command would approve cross-service assignments. I'm your chain of command in this area of operations, Hayes said, and I just approved it. You saved 14 Marines today. If you can provide that level of support for our special operations missions, it would be a significant force multiplier. What do you say? Ilara's face showed the war happening inside. Going back to high-intensity operations meant returning to the world she'd left. The world of impossible shots and classified missions. The world that had broken her. But it also meant using her skills at their full potential. Meant honoring her father's legacy by protecting other fathers, other sons, other daughters. Sir, Ilara said quietly, what kind of ranges are we talking about? Grayson smiled. The kind that would challenge even someone with your background, Captain. The kind that require a shooter who can make improbable shots look routine. Ilara was quiet for a long moment, then nodded. I'd be honored to support your operations, sir. As they left the debriefing room, Grayson fell in step beside Alara. The sun was setting, painting the Afghan sky in shades of purple and gold. "Ghost," he said quietly, "your father would be proud." Ilara looked at the mountains, the endless, hostile terrain. "I hope so," she said, "because the real work is just beginning." They walked toward the armory, where the Barrett waited, clean, perfect, ready. Ilara Blackwood was ready too. 48 hours after Ilara Blackwood saved 14 Marines with 4 impossible shots, the intelligence briefing room at Forward Operating Base Atlas felt like a tomb. The air conditioning struggled against the August heat. Maps covered every wall. Satellite imagery glowed on computer screens. Colonel William Hayes stood at the head of the conference table with the expression of a man about to ask the impossible. Ilara sat beside Grayson Thorne. Across from them, 3 intelligence officers studied folders marked with red classification stamps. The kind of folders that didn't leave the room. The kind that detailed operations nobody would ever read about in newspapers. Hayes pulled up a photograph on the main display. A man, 40s, hard face carved from years of violence, pale eyes that looked dead even in the photograph, scar tissue running along his jawline. The image quality suggested it had been taken from a drone, long range. The subject unaware. "This is our target," Hayes said. His voice carried the weight of command. "We don't have a real name, multiple aliases, but intelligence designates him as Dmitry Volkov, call sign, the Chechen." Ilara felt something cold settle in her stomach. She'd heard whispers about the Chechen, stories told in hushed voices at sniper schools. A ghost story meant to keep cocky young shooters humble. Except he wasn't a ghost story. Hayes clicked through images. Bodies. American bodies. Officers. Senior NCOs. Each killed by a single long-range shot. Volkov is former Soviet Spetsnaz. Fought in Afghanistan during the Soviet occupation, 79 to 89. Left when the USSR collapsed. Dropped off intelligence radar for 15 years. Resurfaced in 2008, working with Taliban forces in Helmand province. Another click. More bodies, more precise kills. In the last 3 years, Volkov has 63 confirmed kills of American personnel. All long-range precision shots. All targeting leadership. He's not just eliminating soldiers. He's decapitating our command structure, making us afraid to put experienced personnel in the field. Grayson leaned forward. Operating range? 2,500 to 3,500 meters, Hayes said. He's taken shots that most snipers wouldn't attempt. His success rate is approximately 80%. Hayes let that number sink in. He's also been training Taliban snipers. We've identified 12 fighters who received instruction from him. Collectively, they've killed over 140 coalition forces. Ilara studied the target photograph. Volkov's eyes. Something familiar in them. The emptiness, the calculation. She'd seen that look before, in the surgeon, in other men who'd crossed the line from soldier to something else, something that enjoyed the killing. "What's his current location?" Ilara asked. Hayes zoomed the satellite image. A compound in the Kajaki district. Isolated, elevated terrain, natural defensive positions. This compound, he uses it as a base of operations, ventures out for hits, returns here. We've had eyes on it for 3 weeks. Very consistent pattern. Every day at noon, he does a security walk around the perimeter, checks the wire, inspects guard positions, military discipline from his Spetsnaz days. How long is he exposed? Grayson's tactical mind already working the problem. 90 seconds. Maybe less if weather conditions change his routine. Ilara felt everyone's eyes on her. She knew where this was going, knew what they were about to ask. The only position that offers clear line of sight to the compound is here. Hayes pointed to a ridge system northwest of the target. Range from that position to the compound courtyard is 3,890 meters. 3,890 meters. Ilara did the math automatically. 2.42 miles. 643 meters farther than her record shot against the surgeon. At that range, bullet drop would exceed 240 feet. Flight time over 6 seconds. Any wind would push the round dozens of feet off course. It was beyond the Barrett's effective range, beyond what military doctrine considered possible. "Sir," Ilara said carefully, "that's an extremely long shot, even in perfect conditions." "We know," Hayes cut her off. "Not unkind, just honest. We've run the ballistics. We've consulted with every long-range shooting expert in theater. They all say the same thing. It's theoretically possible, but practically impossible. Too many variables, too much distance, too little margin for error." He looked at Ilara directly. "But you've made a shot at 3,247 meters. You've demonstrated capabilities beyond what conventional training produces. If anyone in this theater can make this shot, it's you." Ilara felt the weight of it, the expectation, the pressure. "What's the time frame?" 72 hours. Intelligence indicates Volkov is planning a major attack. Kandahar airfield. We've intercepted communications about a coordinated assault. Truck bombs, rockets, small arms. If he succeeds, casualty estimates range from 200 to 300 personnel. 200 to 300 lives. Fathers, sons, brothers. The number hit Ilara like a physical blow. She thought about her own father, Gunnery Sergeant Everett Blackwood, killed by a sniper's bullet because he'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. How many other families would receive those notifications if she didn't take this shot? But there was something else. Hayes hadn't mentioned it yet, but Ilara could feel it coming. "Sir, what are the rules of engagement?" Hayes exchanged glances with the intelligence officers. "That's complicated. The CIA has an interest in this target. They believe Volkov has intelligence about Russian training operations. Their preference would be capture, not kill." There it was. Ilara felt Grayson stiffen beside her. "You want me to wound him?" Ilara's voice flat. "At 3,890 meters in combat conditions, you want me to incapacitate without killing?" "That's the CIA's preference," Hayes said. "But I'm giving you tactical discretion. Your primary mission is to prevent the Kandahar attack. If you can achieve that through wounding and capture, excellent. If the tactical situation requires lethal force, you're authorized. I'm not going to sacrifice American lives for an intelligence opportunity." Ilara appreciated the honesty. Hayes was giving her room to operate, trusting her judgment. But the CIA angle worried her. She'd been burned by agency priorities before. "I'll need time to prepare," Ilara said. "Practice shots at extended range, atmospheric data collection, wind pattern analysis. You've got 48 hours before insertion." Hayes stood. "Use them well. This isn't just about one shot, Captain. This is about preventing a massacre. And maybe, if we're lucky, removing the most lethal enemy sniper in theater." The briefing ended. Ilara and Grayson walked across the base toward the long-range shooting facility. The sun hammered down. 108 degrees, the kind of heat that made you understand why this place had broken empires for thousands of years. "You don't have to do this," Grayson said quietly. Hayes was right. It's a theoretically impossible shot. Nobody would blame you for declining. Ilara thought about that. She could say no, could explain that the range exceeded her capabilities, that the variables were too complex, that the risk of failure was too high. Everyone would understand. Everyone would accept it, except her. "My father taught me something," Ilara said. "He said the difference between good snipers and great ones wasn't skill. It was knowing which impossible shots you could make and which you couldn't. Knowing your limits, but also knowing when to push past them. And you think you can make this shot?" Ilara was quiet for a long moment. Honest assessment. No ego, no bravado. Just cold calculation based on physics and capability. "I think I can, But I need to practice. I need to understand what that bullet does at 3,890 meters. I need to feel it. The long-range facility sat at the far edge of the base. Berms built up to absorb rounds. Targets placed at graduated distances. The longest marked range was 3,000 meters. Ilara would need to extend beyond that. She spent the next 6 hours shooting. Grayson spotted, calling wind, confirming impacts, taking notes, building a data profile of how the Barrett performed at extreme distance. At 3,500 meters, Ilara hit 5 out of 12 shots. The misses were educational, showed her how wind at different altitudes affected the bullet's path, how temperature changes altered trajectory, how even microscopic variations in ammunition produce different results. At 3,700 meters, she hit 3 out of 10. The margin for error was razor thin. At 3,890 meters, her first 5 shots missed completely. The 6th hit the edge of the target. The 7th missed. The 8th, 9th, and 10th missed. Ilara sat back, frustrated. The distance was pushing her to the absolute limit, maybe past it. "Take a break," Grayson said. "You're forcing it." They sat in the shade, drinking water, letting her body recover. Her shoulder ached from the Barrett's recoil. Her eyes burned from hours behind the scope. "Tell me about your brother," Ilara said. "You mentioned he died in Iraq." Grayson was quiet, the subject clearly painful. But he'd opened that door during their first conversation, and Ilara needed to understand the man who would be spotting her shot, the man whose judgment she'd be trusting with her life and the lives of hundreds of others. "Daniel, 2 years younger than me, wanted to be a Marine like his big brother." Grayson's voice carried the weight of old grief. "I trained him before his deployment, taught him everything I knew, room clearing, combat tactics, weapons handling, told him he was ready." He paused. "He wasn't. He was, but ready doesn't mean invincible." IED in Fallujah, 2004. He was leading his fire team through a residential area. Textbook tactics, perfect execution. The bomb was planted under a dead dog in the street, triple stacked artillery rounds. Grayson stopped, breathed. When it went off, there wasn't enough left to fill a small coffin. Ilara understood that pain, the guilt, the second guessing. You blame yourself. Every day, I trained him. I told him he could handle anything Iraq threw at him. I was wrong. You gave him the best training possible, the best knowledge, the best preparation. You can't control every variable in combat. Nobody can. Grayson looked at her. "You sound like you're trying to convince yourself, not me." Ilara smiled, sad. "Maybe. I've spent 2 years wondering if I could have saved my father, if I'd been faster getting through sniper school, if I'd been assigned to his area of operations, if I'd been good enough to find the surgeon before he found my dad." She paused. "But the truth is, I couldn't control those variables. All I could control was what I did after. How I honored his memory by hunting his killer, by finishing what he started, by becoming the sniper he trained me to be." Ilara picked up the Barrett. "This shot, Volkov, it's not about revenge. It's about preventing other daughters from getting that notification, other families from living with that hole that never fills." Grayson nodded. "Then let's get back to work." They resumed shooting. Ilara adjusted her approach, stopped trying to force the shot, started trusting her instincts. The training her father had drilled into her, the muscle memory from 18 months with Task Force Nightfall. At 3,890 meters, her 11th shot hit center mass on the target. Her 12th shot hit 6 inches higher. Her 13th shot hit center mass again. Grayson watched the pattern develop. "You're getting it. What changed?" "I stopped thinking about the distance, started thinking about the fundamentals, breathing, trigger control, follow through. The distance doesn't matter if the fundamentals are perfect." They continued until darkness fell. Ilara had fired 43 rounds at extreme range. 13 had hit the target. a 30% success rate at a distance most snipers would never attempt. It wasn't perfect, but it was possible. That night, Elara lay in her bunk and thought about the mission. 72 hours until insertion, 48 hours until they moved to the forward position, 24 hours to set up and prepare, then 90 seconds to make a shot that would determine whether hundreds of Americans lived or died. No pressure. She pulled out a photograph, creased, worn from being carried in her pocket for years. Her father, Gunnery Sergeant Everett Blackwood, standing beside a Barrett M82, smiling, proud, strong. "I miss you, Dad," she whispered to the photograph. "I wish you were here to help me with this one, to tell me if I'm being crazy or brave, to remind me of something you taught me that I've forgotten." She closed her eyes and saw her father at the range, patient, methodical, teaching her to trust herself more than the equipment. Those lessons had prepared her for this moment. "I'll make you proud, Dad. I promise." The next morning she woke to chaos. Explosions rocked the base. Elara was out of her bunk and into her gear in 30 seconds. Plate carrier, helmet, rifle, moving toward the sound of combat on pure instinct. The base was under attack. Rockets, small arms fire, coordinated assault on 3 sides. Elara reached the TOC. Hayes was coordinating defense. Radio operators calling for air support. Medical teams preparing for casualties. "What's the situation?" Elara asked. Hayes looked grim. "Probe attack, they're testing our defenses. This is Volkov's signature. He hits with precision strikes to identify weak points, then plans his major assault based on what he learns." "How many casualties?" "2 wounded so far. Could have been worse. They're pulling back now." As Hayes predicted, the attack ended 15 minutes after it began. The Taliban fighters melted back into the mountains, taking their intelligence with them. An hour later, in a secure conference room, Hayes reviewed attack footage with grim intensity. "They knew exactly where our ammunition storage was," the S2 intelligence officer said, tracing the rocket impacts on the display. "Not our fuel depot, not the motor pool. They went straight for the bunker that's not marked on any map." Elara felt ice in her stomach. "Sir, that's actionable intelligence, inside intelligence." Hayes' jaw tightened. "We've had 3 precision strikes in 2 weeks, each one targeting infrastructure that requires base access to identify. Someone here is feeding them targeting data." Grayson's voice was hard. "Do we have suspects?" "Working the problem. Whoever it is has access to operational schedules, guard rotations, supply manifests." Hayes looked directly at Elara. "Your mission is now code word classified. Nobody outside this room knows the details, not even your own chain of command. If there's a mole, we don't give them the chance to compromise you." The weight of it settled over Elara. Somewhere on this base, an American was betraying his brothers. Might already know about her. Might already be planning how to stop her. She'd have to succeed before whoever it was could act. An intelligence officer approached Hayes with a radio. "Sir, we're getting reports from informants in Kajaki district. Volkov is moving up his timeline. The Kandahar attack is happening in 24 hours, not 72. Elara felt the timeline compress. 24 hours total. They'd need to insert immediately, set up in darkness, wait for tomorrow's noon window. 1 shot, no second chances. Hayes turned to her. "Can you be ready?" Elara thought about her practice session. 30% success rate at a range that exceeded the Barrett's design parameters. In a combat environment with hostile forces nearby, with the lives of hundreds depending on perfect execution, with a possible traitor on base who might compromise her position. "Yes, sir," she said. "I can be ready." Grayson appeared at her elbow. "We need to talk, privately." They walked to an empty storage room. Grayson's face was serious, more serious than she'd seen since they met. "I just got intelligence from my SEAL contacts," Grayson said, "about Volkov, about why the CIA wants him alive." "Go on." He's not just former Spetsnaz, he's former GRU, Russian military intelligence. He didn't leave when the Soviet Union collapsed. He was reassigned. Deep cover. The Russians sent him back to Afghanistan to train insurgents, to bleed American forces, to test new tactics and weapons systems. Ilara felt the pieces clicking together. The CIA wants to know what the Russians are planning. More than that, they think Volkov has intelligence about Russian operations in other theaters. Syria, Ukraine, Libya, everywhere the Russians are working through proxies. He's a treasure trove of classified information. Grayson's expression darkened. There's more. I pulled some strings, called in favors from old contacts. He paused. Ilara, Volkov didn't just kill your father. He trained the surgeon, taught him advanced techniques, provided him with equipment. Your father was killed with a Russian-made bullet, fired from a Russian-made rifle, by a sniper trained by Russian intelligence. The room seemed to tilt. Ilara grabbed the wall for support. My father was killed by Russian intelligence. Indirectly, but yes, Volkov has been running a program to create insurgent snipers specifically to target American leadership. Your father was one of hundreds killed in that program. The surgeon was just one of Volkov's students. Ilara felt rage building, hot, consuming, the same rage that had driven her to disobey orders and kill the surgeon, the same rage that had gotten her kicked out of Task Force Nightfall. Ilara, Grayson's voice cut through the red haze, I'm telling you this because you need to know, but I'm also telling you that you cannot let this become personal. If you take that shot for revenge, you'll miss. Anger makes shooters sloppy. You taught me that when you told me about your father's lessons. Ilara breathed, controlled, pushed the rage down into a lockbox in her mind. I know. I understand. Do you? Because the CIA is going to pressure you to wound, not kill. They're going to remind you that his intelligence could save American lives. And they're right. His information could prevent future attacks. Grayson looked at her with decades of hard experience in his eyes. But Ilara, at 3,890 meters, you cannot reliably place a wounding shot. You can barely hit center mass. If you try to wound him, you'll probably miss completely. So what do? You do what your father would have done. You assess the tactical situation. You make the call based on mission requirements, not personal feelings, not political pressure, and you live with the consequences. Ilara nodded. When do we leave? Wheels up in 6 hours. Helicopter insert to forward operating Point Eagle. From there, it's an 8-hour foot patrol to the ridge position. We'll be in position by 0400 hours tomorrow. Then we wait for Volkov's noon security walk. Who else is coming? Just us. This is a 2-person operation. Me spotting, you shooting. Small footprint, less chance of detection. Ilara started to leave, then stopped. Grayson, thank you for telling me about Volkov, about my father. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. Everett Blackwood was my friend, and you're becoming one too. Friends don't let friends walk into situations blind. The next 6 hours passed in mechanical preparation. Ilara checked her equipment 3 times. Barrett cleaned and function checked. Ammunition inspected round by round. Gear packed and repacked. Meteorological equipment calibrated. Range-finding equipment tested. She pulled out 2 special rounds. Brass casings engraved with her father's initials. E.B. Everett Blackwood. She'd carried these rounds since the day he died, saving them, waiting for the shot that mattered most. Under magnification, Ilara discovered hairline stress fractures in both casings. 20-year-old brass from her father's Desert Storm deployment. Metal fatigue. Risk. Catastrophic chamber failure. Grayson found her staring at the rounds. Use standard ammunition. Your father would want you alive, not sentimental. Ilara studied the fractured brass under the light. The cracks ran deep, nearly halfway through the casing walls. If this failed during the second shot, Volkov turning, only one chance remaining. You know what happens if this fractures mid-chamber, Grayson said. Gas blowback, scope to the face. You could lose your right eye. Chamber rupture would destroy the rifle. Zero follow-up capability. Ilara's jaw said. Then the first shot better sever that chain clean, because I won't get a third chance. She slipped both EB rounds into the magazine, heard them click home. Her father's initials, her father's legacy, her father's war. Let's move out, she said. Grayson did the same with his spotting equipment. 60-power scope, laser rangefinders, ballistic computers, communication gear. Everything triple-checked. They ate a final meal in the dining facility. Neither spoke much, the weight of the mission settling over them like a physical thing. At 1600 hours, they loaded into a Black Hawk helicopter. The crew chief gave them a thumbs up. The rotors spun up. The helicopter lifted into the Afghan sky. Ilara watched the base shrink below them, wondered if she'd see it again, wondered if this mission would end like so many others, with a flag-draped coffin and another family destroyed. The helicopter flew nap of the earth, hugging terrain, avoiding radar. The pilots were night stalkers, the best in the world. They'd done this run 1,000 times. 40 minutes later, they touched down at Forward Operating Point Eagle, a small outpost manned by 2 squads of Marines. Remote, isolated. The kind of place you sent people who'd done something to piss off their command, or the kind of place you staged from when you didn't want anyone to know you were there. The Marine lieutenant in charge met them, young, maybe 25, but his eyes were older. Combat ages people fast. Master Sergeant, Captain, he shook their hands. We've got your route planned, 8 hours to the ridge position. We'll have a QRF standing by in case you need emergency extract. Appreciated, Grayson said. We'll radio when we're in position. They left at 1800 hours. Sunset still 2 hours away. The patrol route took them through some of the most hostile terrain in Helmand Province. Rocky, mountainous, perfect ambush country. Ilara carried 68 pounds of gear, the Barrett across her back, ammunition distributed in her pack and pouches, water, food, medical supplies, everything she needed to survive and operate for 48 hours, if necessary. Grayson carried 55 pounds, his age showing in the way he moved. Careful, economical, conserving energy for when it mattered. They moved in silence, tactical spacing, eyes scanning for threats. Afghanistan had a way of killing careless soldiers. Mines, ambushes, simple bad luck. You respected the terrain or it killed you. Night fell. They continued by moonlight and night vision. The landscape turned green and ghostly. Shadows became potential threats. Every rock could hide an enemy. Every sound could be an ambush developing. 4 hours in, they stopped for water. Ilara's legs burned. Her shoulders ached. The Barrett felt like it weighed 100 pounds instead of 30. How you holding up? Grayson asked quietly. Fine, Ilara drank. Conserved. They had a long way to go. Your father would be proud of you, making this patrol, preparing for this shot. He knew the cost of this work. He'd be proud you're willing to pay it. Ilara looked at the stars, brilliant in the unpolluted Afghan sky. The same stars her father had seen, the same stars that had watched him die. I hope so, she said. I really hope so. They continued, hour after hour, climbing, moving, the ridge position getting closer. At 0:30:45, they reached it. Grayson set up the spotting scope. Ilara assembled the Barrett. They created a hide position using natural terrain features. Concealment, protection, clear line of sight. Ilara ranged the target area. The laser rangefinder painted the compound with invisible light. Range 4,087 meters, Ilara said quietly. 4,087 meters, even farther than the briefing had indicated, 200 meters farther than she'd practiced. Grayson looked at her, question in his eyes. Ilara did the math. At this range, bullet drop would be 247 feet. Flight time, 6.4 seconds. Even a slight wind would push the round dozens of feet off target. It was beyond impossible. It was insane. "I can make it," Ilara said. Not bravado, not confidence, just cold assessment of capability. "I know you can," Grayson replied. "But should you?" Ilara thought about that. About Kandahar airfield. About 200 innocent people who would die if she didn't take this shot. About her father. About every American who died because of Volkov's training program. "Yes," she said. "I should. I have to." They settled in to wait. 7 hours until Volkov's security walk. 7 hours to prepare, to calculate, to quiet her mind and let her training take over. 7 hours until the shot that would make or break her career. 7 hours until she found out if Ilara Blackwood was the sniper her father believed she could be. The sun began to rise over the mountains. Gold light spilled across the peaks. Another Afghan dawn in a war that measured time in bullets and blood. Ilara closed her eyes, breathed, centered herself. When she opened them again, she was ready. The sun climbed slowly over the Hindu Kush mountains, transforming the Afghan landscape from shadow to brutal clarity. Ilara living their lives, unaware that death watched from an impossible distance. Grayson Thorne lay beside her, eye pressed to his spotting scope, 60 power magnification. He'd been calling atmospheric conditions every 15 minutes for the past 3 hours, building a data profile, understanding how the air moved between their position and the target. "Wind steady at 12 miles per hour, Grayson said quietly. "Northwest, temperature climbing, 86 degrees now. Barometric pressure holding at 29.2. Ilara made minute adjustments to her scope, calculating. At 4,087 meters, that wind would push her bullet 34 feet to the right. She'd have to aim at a point in empty space. Trust physics and mathematics to curve the round back onto target. Her father's voice echoed in memory. "Long-range shooting isn't about the rifle, Ilara. It's about reading the invisible, understanding what the air is doing between you and the target. The rifle just sends the message. The air delivers it." "Contact in 30 minutes, Grayson said. "Intelligence reports Volkov's vehicle just entered the compound. He'll do his security walk at noon. Same pattern as always." Ilara didn't respond, conserving energy. Her mind was already entering the zone, the quiet place where elite snipers lived when preparing for the shot, where heartbeats slowed, where breathing became meditation, where the world narrowed to target, wind, and trigger. She'd loaded 2 rounds into the Barrett's magazine. Both were special. Brass casings engraved with her father's initials. E. B. Everett Blackwood. She'd carried these rounds since the day he died, saving them, waiting for the shot that mattered most. Today was that day. "Ilara," Grayson's voice pulled her back from the edge of that quiet place. "Before this goes down, I need to say something." She looked at him. His weathered face, the lines around his eyes. 55 years old, 30 years of service. He'd seen more combat than most people could imagine, survived things that had killed better men. And right now he looked worried. "Your father made me promise something," Grayson said, "the day before his last deployment. We were having drinks at the NCO club at Camp Pendleton. He knew it was a dangerous assignment. Helmand Province, Taliban sniper activity high. He knew the risks." Ilara felt something tighten in her chest. Her father had never told her about those conversations, the last preparations, the quiet moments before warriors went to war. "He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd watch over you. Make sure you didn't let revenge consume you. Make sure you remembered that being a good sniper meant being a good person first." Grayson paused. "I failed that promise when you got kicked out of Task Force Nightfall. I should have been there, should have helped you through it." "You didn't know where I was," Ilara said quietly. "Classified assignment. You couldn't have helped even if you'd wanted to." "Maybe, but I'm here now, and I need to ask you something. I need an honest answer." Grayson's eyes were intense. searching. Why are you taking this shot? Is it for the mission? For the 200 people at Kandahar who will die if Volkov lives? Or is it because he trained the surgeon, because he's responsible for your father's death? Ilara had been asking herself the same question for the past 7 hours, examining her motivations, testing her resolve, looking for the poison of revenge that had compromised her judgment before. Both, she said finally, honest. I'd be lying if I said Volkov killing my father doesn't matter. It does. Every time I think about him, I feel rage, pure, consuming, the same rage that made me kill the surgeon instead of following orders. She paused. But this shot isn't about that rage. It's about preventing future daughters from feeling it. It's about stopping a man who's killed 63 Americans and trained others to kill hundreds more. If my father were here, he'd take this shot. Not for revenge, for the mission, for the people we're sworn to protect. Grayson studied her face, reading truth, reading intent. Finally, he nodded. Good, because at this range, anger will make you miss. You need to be cold, calculated, zen. I know, Ilara said. My father taught me that. They fell silent. The sun continued its climb. The temperature rose into the 90s. Heat waves began shimmering off the distant mountains. Ilara watched them through her scope. Mirage patterns. They told her about air density, about thermal currents, about the invisible architecture of atmosphere that her bullet would travel through. At 11:45, movement in the compound. I've got activity, Grayson said. Main building, door opening. Ilara's heart rate increased slightly. Years of training kicked in. 4-count breathing, in through the nose, hold, out through the mouth, hold, forcing her autonomic nervous system to calm. A figure emerged from the building, tall, lean, moving with the economy of a trained operator. Even at 4,000 meters, Ilara could see the confidence, the certainty, the predator's gait. Target acquired, Ilara said. Volkov confirmed by profile match. Grayson zoomed his spotting scope to maximum magnification. Confirmed. That's our guy. Volkov walked across the courtyard, stopped at the guard position, spoke with the fighters there, inspected their weapons, checked their sight lines. Professional, thorough. The muscle memory of Soviet military training still evident after all these years. Ilara calculated the shot in her head. Range 4,087 meters. Elevation 427 feet above target. Wind 12 miles per hour from northwest. Temperature 92 degrees. Humidity 38%. The Barrett's ballistic computer provided the data, but Ilara's mind provided the intuition, the feel, the understanding that came from thousands of hours behind a scope. To hit Volkov, she'd need to aim 23 feet above his head and 34 feet to his left. A point in empty air, trusting that gravity, wind, and Earth's rotation would conspire to bring the bullet down onto a human-sized target at a distance most people couldn't comprehend. Volkov continued his patrol, moving toward the compound's northern wall. Ilara tracked him through the scope, steady, patient. She'd been taught that sniping was 99% waiting and 1% shooting. This was the waiting. Then Volkov did something unexpected. He stopped, pulled out a cigarette, lit it, stood there smoking, completely still. Wind check, Ilara said. Holding steady, 12 miles per hour northwest, consistent. This was it. Volkov would stand here for the duration of his cigarette, maybe 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. A stationary target at extreme range, the best opportunity Ilara would get. Her finger moved to the trigger, first pad of her index finger, proper placement. 4.5 pounds of pressure would break the shot. Then her radio crackled. Colonel Hayes's voice, urgent. Ghost, Atlas TOC, we've got a situation developing. Stand by for update. Ilara's finger froze. Standing by. Hayes's voice carried stress. Bad news coming. We've intercepted Taliban radio traffic. They've got a prisoner, American, Staff Sergeant Derek Ashford, captured 3 months ago during a patrol in Kajaki district. Alara felt ice water in her veins. Derek Ashford, Bryce Ashford's older brother, the soldier who'd been missing in action, presumed dead. Intel indicates Ashford is being held at Volkov's compound, Hayes continued. Taliban is planning to execute him today. Broadcast the video to damage American morale. Ghost, the prisoner is at your target location. Through her scope, Alara saw movement. Taliban fighters dragging someone from a building, hands bound, blindfolded. The man was emaciated, bruised, 3 months of captivity written on his body, but he was alive. Grayson swung his spotting scope, found the prisoner. Jesus Christ, that's Ashford. He's 20 feet from Volkov. Ilara's mind raced. The mission parameters had just changed completely. This wasn't just about eliminating a high-value target. This was about saving an American prisoner of war. Hayes's voice came through again. Ghost, understand you have eyes on the prisoner. Situation assessment. Ilara forced herself to think tactically, professionally. Sir, prisoner is in the courtyard, 20 feet northwest of primary target. Taliban fighters preparing execution. Estimate we have 90 seconds before they kill him. Can you take both shots? Eliminate Volkov and create an opportunity to rescue Ashford? Ilara looked at the geometry. Volkov standing still, smoking. Derek on his knees, blindfolded, 20 feet away. Taliban fighters with weapons surrounding both. At 4,087 meters, she couldn't take 2 separate shots fast enough. The moment the first round impacted, everyone would scatter. Volkov would disappear into the building. Derek would be executed immediately. But there was another option. Insane. Nearly impossible. But possible. Sir, I have a tactical solution, but it's unconventional. Grayson looked at her, eyes widening as he realized what she was thinking. Explain, Hayes said. Ilara studied the scene through her scope. Derek was on his knees. His hands were bound behind his back with a steel chain. The chain was secured to a metal stake driven into the ground. Heavy, industrial, the kind of restraint system used for long-term prisoners. Volkov stood 20 feet away, smoking, completely unaware of the precision optics studying him from an impossible distance. The prisoner is restrained with a steel chain, Ilara said. If I can hit the chain where it connects to the stake, the impact should sever it. 50 caliber round hitting hardened steel at that range will fragment, create chaos, give Ashford a chance to escape in the confusion. And Volkov? Hayes asked. Second shot, 3 seconds later, after the chain breaks. While everyone's focused on the explosion in the prisoner area, Volkov will turn toward the commotion. That's when I take him. Silence on the radio. Hayes was calculating, weighing the probability of success against the cost of failure. Grayson leaned close, whispered, Ilara, that chain is a 2-inch target at 4,000 meters. In variable wind, if you miss, Derek dies. If you hit but don't sever the chain, Derek dies. And Volkov escapes, Ilara said. I know. The ballistic computer says this shot has less than 5% probability of success. I know. Your father would tell you this is suicide, that you can't save everyone, that you should take the mission shot and live with the consequences. Ilara looked at Grayson. My father also taught me that the hardest part of being a sniper isn't making impossible shots. It's choosing which ones to take. I'm choosing this one. Hayes's voice crackled through the radio. Ghost, you're authorized. Both shots, your discretion on execution. But understand, if this fails, Volkov escapes and Ashford dies. Can you live with that? Ilara thought about Bryce Ashford, the cocky kid who'd dismissed her in the armory, who'd mocked her capabilities, who'd since apologized, who'd become an ally, who was about to watch his brother die on a video screen unless she did the impossible. Yes, sir, Ilara said. I can live with it Because I tried. Execute when ready. May God guide your aim. The radio went silent. Ilara settled deeper into her shooting position. Every muscle in her body relaxed. Her breathing slowed to the rhythm her father had taught her. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Her heart rate dropped below 50 beats per minute. Grayson called the wind. Still 12 miles per hour northwest, steady. Through the scope, Ilara watched Taliban fighters position a video camera, preparing to broadcast Derek Ashford's execution to the world. A propaganda victory, proof that America couldn't protect its soldiers. Volkov took another drag on his cigarette, relaxed, in control, a predator in his domain. Ilara calculated the first shot, the chain, 2 inches wide, 34 feet of wind drift, 23 feet of bullet drop. She'd have to hit a target the size of a coffee cup at 2.5 miles. While accounting for variables that could change in the 6 seconds it took her bullet to arrive, her crosshairs settled on empty air, 23 feet above the chain, 34 feet left, a point in nothing, pure faith in physics. Range confirmed, 4,087 meters, Grayson said. Wind holding, temperature 93 degrees, pressure stable. Ilara's finger touched the trigger. First shot in 10 seconds. She breathed. In, out, in, out. Her body became still as stone. Her mind became clear as glass. This was the place her father had taught her to find. The quiet center where perfect shots lived. 5 seconds. The world narrowed to the reticle. The trigger. The breath. 3 seconds. In her peripheral vision, she saw a Taliban fighter raise a sword above Derek's neck. The execution was beginning. Shooting! The Barrett roared. Recoil slammed into Ilara's shoulder. The muzzle blast kicked up dust around their hide position. The sound echoed across the mountains like thunder. Ilara stayed on scope, watching. The bullet was already flying. 2,800 feet per second, traveling through air that pushed and pulled at the copper-jacketed projectile, gravity dragging it down in a precise mathematical arc. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Ilara was already cycling the bolt, ejecting the spent brass, her father's initials tumbling through Afghan sunlight, chambering the second round, the last one with his initials. 4 seconds, 5 seconds. Through the scope, she saw the impact. The .50 caliber round hit the chain exactly where it connected to the stake. The chain exploded. Fragments of hardened steel and bullet jackets sprayed outward at lethal velocity. The stake shattered. Derek lurched forward, suddenly free. The courtyard erupted in chaos. Taliban fighters spinning, shouting, confusion rippling through their formation. Volkov turned toward the commotion, dropping his cigarette, reaching for the pistol at his belt. Ilara's crosshairs were already on him, tracking, leading, accounting for his movement. 6 seconds. She fired the second shot, the last round with her father's initials, leaving the barrel at 2,800 feet per second, beginning its own impossible journey across 2.5 miles of hostile air. The moment the round left the chamber, Ilara felt it. The brass fracture splitting, gas blowback, searing heat scorching her right cheek, the scope recoiling into her eyebrow, blood streaming into her eye. But the round was away. 1 second. Derek Ashford was running, hands still bound, blindfold slipping, running toward the compound wall. 2 seconds. Taliban fighters opening fire, shooting at Derek, bullets kicking up dirt around his feet. 3 seconds. Volkov bringing his pistol up, aiming at Derek. A final kill before escape. 4 seconds. Ilara held her breath, watched, prayed. 5 seconds. 6 seconds. The bullet arrived. Through the scope, Ilara saw Dmitry Volkov's chest explode. The .50 caliber round impacted just left of his sternum, center mass, the kind of shot that left no room for survival. Volkov's body lifted off the ground, flew backwards 6 feet, landed in a spreading pool of crimson. dead before he hit the ground. "Target down," Grayson said. His voice carried awe. "Both shots, both hits. Ilara, you just made 2 successful shots at 4,000 meters. That's impossible." Through the scope, Ilara watched Derek Ashford reach the compound wall. A Taliban fighter grabbed him. Derek, hands still bound, headbutted the fighter, broke free, climbed the wall with the desperate strength of a man who'd survived 3 months of hell and wasn't going back. "Atlas, Ghost," Ilara transmitted. "Primary target eliminated. Prisoner is escaping the compound. Northeast wall. Request immediate QRF for recovery." Hayes' voice came back instantly. "QRF launching now. Helicopter 2 minutes out. Ghost, I don't know how you made those shots, but you just saved that man's life and eliminated our highest priority target. Outstanding work." Ilara didn't respond. She was watching through the scope, watching Derek Ashford run across open ground, Taliban fighters in pursuit, shooting, missing in their panic and confusion. Then the beautiful sound of American helicopters. 2 Apache gunships screaming over the ridgeline, their 30mm cannons opening fire. Taliban fighters evaporating in clouds of red mist and shattered earth. A Black Hawk descended, fast rope deploying, Marines sliding down, securing Derek, covering fire, professional extraction. 60 seconds later, the Black Hawk lifted off with Derek aboard. The Apaches provided cover, rockets streaking into the compound, destroying buildings, eliminating threats. Justice delivered at supersonic speed. Ilara sat back from the Barrett. Her hands were shaking. First time in years. The adrenaline finally catching up. The magnitude of what she'd just done settling into her bones. Grayson put a hand on her shoulder. "You did it. Both shots. 4,087 meters. That's the longest confirmed combat kill in military history. And you did it twice. In 6 seconds." Ilara looked at the spent brass beside her. 2 casings. Her father's initials catching the Afghan sun. E.B. She picked them up, held them carefully. These would go in a special place when she got home, right next to his photograph. "My father always said the best shots are the ones that save lives, not just take them," Ilara said quietly. "Today I saved one and stopped hundreds from being taken at Kandahar." They packed their equipment, beginning the long patrol back to forward operating Point Eagle. The Marines there would provide security for the return to FOB Atlas. As they moved down from the ridge, Ilara allowed herself one look back. The compound was burning now. Apache rockets had done their work. Volkov's training facility, his safe haven, his legacy of death, all burning. Her father's killer was dead. The man who trained him was dead. The program that had killed hundreds of Americans was ended. It should have felt like victory, like completion. Instead, Ilara just felt tired. The patrol back took 9 hours. They moved carefully. Taliban forces in the area would be angry, looking for revenge, looking for the sniper who'd reached out across 2 miles of hostile air and killed their leader. But Ilara and Grayson were ghosts. They moved through the terrain without trace, without sound. By the time Taliban fighters reached the ridge where they'd shot from, the only evidence would be 2 spent brass casings, a calling card from an invisible warrior. They reached forward operating Point Eagle at 2100 hours. The Marine lieutenant met them with hot coffee and news. "Derek Ashford's in surgery at Kandahar," the lieutenant said. "Doctors say he'll make it, malnourished, dehydrated, some broken bones that healed wrong, but he'll live. His brother's on a helicopter right now going to see him." Ilara felt something warm in her chest. Bryce Ashford would see his brother alive, would get to tell him he'd been forgiven, would get another chance. Not everyone got that. They helicoptered back to FOB Atlas at midnight. Ilara expected to go straight to debriefing. Instead, as she stepped off the Black Hawk, she saw the entire base personnel in formation. Hundreds of soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, standing at attention. Colonel Hayes stood at the front. As Alara approached, he called out, "Attention to orders!" The entire base snapped to attention. Hayes stepped forward. "Captain Ilara Blackwood, today you conducted a precision strike operation at a range of 4,087 meters. You engaged and eliminated a high-value target responsible for 63 American deaths. You simultaneously rescued a prisoner of war under active threat of execution. You prevented a planned attack on Kandahar airfield that would have killed an estimated 200 to 300 coalition personnel." He paused. Let the weight of those words settle. Your shots today represent the longest confirmed combat kills in military history. Your actions represent the highest ideals of American service. You are a credit to your uniform, your family legacy, and your nation. The base erupted in applause, cheering. Ilara stood there, overwhelmed. She'd expected classification, secrecy, the same sanitized record that had buried her previous achievements. Instead, she was getting recognition, public acknowledgement. Her father would have been so proud. 2 days later, Bryce Ashford returned from Kandahar Medical. His face had changed. The cockiness burned away by 72 hours sitting beside his brother's hospital bed. He found Alara in the armory, breaking in a replacement Barrett, the original destroyed by the EB brass fracture. "Derek's awake," Bryce said, voice rough. First thing he asked when the morphine wore off, "Who made those shots?" When I told him it was the female captain I dismissed in the armory, he laughed until his ribs hurt. Bryce's eyes glistened. He said he heard the chain explode, thought it was a grenade, thought they were killing him messy. Then he heard Volkov drop 20 feet away and knew. Someone was watching from God's distance, protecting him when he couldn't protect himself. Bryce wiped his face. "You gave me my brother back. After I mocked you, doubted you, disrespected you, you still saved him anyway." Alara didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. Bryce squared his shoulders. "I'm putting in for a transfer to your unit. I want to be your spotter. Want to learn from the best, if you'll have me." Alara looked past him to where Grayson stood. He smiled, nodded, approval in his weathered face. "You'll have to earn it," Alara said to Bryce. "Being a spotter isn't about ego. It's about service, about making the shooter better. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am," Bryce said. "I can. I will." The debriefing lasted 3 hours. Alara walked Hayes and the intelligence officers through every detail. The calculations, the wind calls, the decision to take both shots, the impossible geometry that had made it work. When it was done, Hayes pulled her aside privately. "The CIA is furious," he said. "They wanted Volkov alive. They're already complaining up the chain of command, saying you disobeyed the preference for capture." Alara felt the old fear rising, the same fear from when she'd killed the surgeon. Would she be punished again? Kicked out again? Her record sanitized again? Hayes must have seen it in her face. He smiled. "Relax, Captain. I told them that battlefield conditions required lethal force, that attempting to wound at 4,000 meters would have compromised the prisoner rescue and the overall mission. They're not happy, but they can't argue with results. 200 people are alive at Kandahar because of your decision. So my record will remain classified for approximately 20 years, standard protocol for sensitive operations. After that, it'll be declassified. Your name will enter the history books. The female soldier who made the longest combat shot in history, who saved American lives through impossible marksmanship." Alara thought about that. 20 years. She'd be 47, maybe retired, maybe teaching, maybe telling this story to students who wouldn't quite believe it. "I can live with that," she said. "There's one more thing," Hayes said. "I've been authorized to offer you a position, training assignment, Advanced Scout Sniper School. You'd be an instructor, teaching the next generation of long-range shooters, passing on your father's legacy. Interested?" Alara thought about it. No more combat deployments. No more impossible shots. No more lying on mountains waiting to kill people at distances they couldn't imagine. Instead, teaching, mentoring, creating new generations of precision shooters who would protect Americans the way she had. Her father had been an instructor, had taught hundreds of Marines, had shaped careers and saved lives through the knowledge he'd shared. Maybe it was time for Alara to do the same. "Yes, sir," she said. "I'm very interested." 3 years later, Staff Sergeant Alara Blackwood stood in front of her first class at Advanced Scout Sniper School. 35 students, including 9 women, all looking at her with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. She was young for an instructor, only 30, but her reputation had preceded her. Whispers about impossible shots, classified operations, records that couldn't be discussed. "My name is Staff Sergeant Blackwood," she said. "Some of you have heard stories about me. Some of those stories are true. Most are exaggerated. But here's what you need to know. I'm here to teach you how to become precision shooters, how to make difficult shots in combat conditions, how to save American lives through marksmanship." She paused, made eye contact with each student. "But more importantly, I'm here to teach you something my father taught me, that being a good sniper isn't about the shots you take. It's about the shots you choose not to take. It's about judgment, about restraint, about understanding that every trigger pull has consequences that ripple far beyond the target." A hand went up. One of the female students, young, maybe 22, reminded Alara of herself at that age. "Instructor Blackwood, is it true you made a 4,000-meter shot?" Alara smiled. "That's classified, but I'll tell you this. If you master the fundamentals I'm going to teach you, if you practice until the rifle becomes an extension of yourself, if you learn to read wind and atmosphere like your native language, then there's no such thing as an impossible shot. There are only improbable ones. And with enough skill and enough faith, you can make the improbable routine." She walked to the rifle rack, pulled out a Barrett M82, the same model she'd used in Afghanistan, the same weapon that had reached across impossible distances and delivered American justice. "This rifle will become your closest companion. You'll learn every component, every function, every limitation. You'll practice until you can field strip it blindfolded, until you can calculate ballistics faster than a computer, until you can make a shot at 1,000 meters with the same confidence you'd have at 100. Alara set the Barrett on the demonstration table. Let the students see it, touch it, feel the weight of the weapon and the responsibility it represented. "My father used to say that rifles don't kill people. Bullets don't kill people. Bad decisions kill people. As snipers, you'll make life and death decisions from distances where the enemy can't see you, can't fight back, can't defend themselves. That power comes with responsibility. Use it wisely. Use it honorably. Use it the way Americans expect their warriors to use it." Over the next 3 years, Alara trained 216 students. Bryce Ashford became her best spotter, then deployed as a sniper himself. Grayson Thorne retired at 58, recommended Alara as his replacement for advanced training operations. That evening, on the 10th anniversary of her father's death, Alara visited Arlington National Cemetery. She placed flowers on Gunnery Sergeant Everett Blackwood's grave, stood there in silence, remembering. A shadow fell across the headstone. Alara looked up to see an older woman, white hair, kind eyes, wearing a Gold Star mother's pin, the symbol of women who'd lost children in military service. "Are you Alara Blackwood?" the woman asked. "Yes, ma'am. My son was at Kandahar Airfield, that day in August 2011, the day they say an attack was prevented, the day someone killed a terrorist leader from over 2 miles away." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "My son is alive because of that shot. He came home, got married, gave me grandchildren, all because someone I'll never meet did something impossible to protect him." She hugged Alara tight, the embrace of a mother grateful beyond words. When she left, Alara knelt by her father's grave, placed her hand on the cold marble. Beside the flowers, she set two spent brass casings, dented, scorched, but completing their purpose. The initials E.B. catching the sunset light. "I kept my promise, Dad," she whispered. "I became the sniper you trained me to be. Not for revenge, not for glory, but to protect the people who couldn't protect themselves. I hope I made you proud." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of summer grass and distant rain. Ilara imagined it was her father's voice, telling her what she already knew in her heart. He was proud. He'd always been proud, not because of the shots she'd made, but because of the person she'd become. A warrior who understood that the hardest part of being a sniper wasn't making impossible shots. It was choosing which ones to take, and living with the consequences of both the shots taken and the shots withheld. Ilara Blackwood stood, straightened her shoulders, walked away from the grave toward the parking lot, toward her car, toward the rest of her life. Behind her, the inscription on her father's headstone caught the afternoon sun. Master Gunnery Sergeant Everett Blackwood, 1952 to 2009. He taught others to aim higher, and his daughter had proven that the best way to honor a teacher's legacy wasn't through revenge or records. It was through passing the lessons forward, through teaching others, through transforming pain into purpose, through becoming the person her father had always believed she could be. A ghost who protected the living, a warrior who chose justice over vengeance, a sniper who understood that the longest shot wasn't measured in meters, it was measured in lives saved, in futures protected, in legacies honored. And by that measure, Ilara Blackwood's shot would echo through generations. The next morning, Ilara stood on the Advanced Scout Sniper School range. A young woman, couldn't be more than 23, struggled with windage calculations at 800 meters. "Forget the computer," Ilara said, kneeling beside her. "Feel the wind on your face. Watch the mirage. Your body knows more than the machine does." The student looked at her, green eyes, determined, reminded Ilara of herself at that age. "My father taught me that," Ilara continued, "and his father taught him. That's how this works. We pass it forward. One shot, one student, one generation." She placed her hand over the students on the rifle. "Now, breathe and trust yourself." The rifle spoke. 800 meters downrange, the target rang steel. The student's face lit with wonder. Ilara smiled. Her father's legacy, living on through new hands, new eyes, new warriors who would one day teach others the same lessons. The longest shot wasn't 4,087 meters. It was this, right here, this moment, teaching someone to aim higher, invisible, impossible, immortal.